Miss Spick's Trike of Terror. In a world of horrible teachers, one in particular stands out for her wickedness. Step forward, or rather, roll forward, Miss Spick. The lady may have been elderly, but she had lost none of her power to instil fear into the hearts of all the pupils at Spottington School. Miss Spick's eyes were as black as coal, her skin was as white as snow, her tongue was long and thin like a snake's. When she spoke, her S's would be sinister. The librarian always rode her three-wheeler mobility scooter along the aisles of books as fast as she could go. Kids had to leap out of the way to avoid being run over. Despite the wounded children strewn across the floor, the librarian kept her library impossibly neat and tidy. All the book spines sat on the shelves in perfectly straight lines in strict alphabetical order. There was never a speck of dust or a spot of dirt to be seen anywhere in Spottington School library. Miss Spick enforced a strict policy of no browsing. Signs reminded you of this at every step. In fact, there might have been more signs than there were books. Books were to be taken out or left well alone. When they were returned, the librarian would pull her magnifying glass out of her drawer and thoroughly inspect them for any damage. Without fail, Spick always found some. When she did, you would have to pay. There's a fold on the top of 137, fine. There's discoloration on the book cover caused by exposure to sunlight, fine. There's a greasy smudge from a thumb of a peculiar stubby finger on the inside flap, fine. Spick determined the fines herself. They would vary wildly. The librarian would stare down at your shoes and determine from the state of them what she thought you could afford. Scruffed 10 pence, highly polished £10. The money would then be snatched off you and stuffed in Spick's special tin. The tin was huge, more like a treasure chest, and was full to bursting with cash. Every child at Spottington School had fallen foul of Spick's greed, except two, the Tang twins. Tom and Tim Tang were child geniuses. The twins always received 100% in all their tests. The bullies called them nerds. No matter, these nerds were sure to invent some sort of supercomputer, become billionaires and take over the world. The Tangs had been dabbling with all kinds of invention already, even though none had quite caught on yet. They had created internet cats, flying sheds, invisible hairdryers, exploding cricket balls, self-boiling eggs, night vision goggles for bats, electric flip-flops that walk themselves, nuclear-powered umbrellas, inflatable socks, hair-free dogs. The Tang twins worked 10 times harder than anyone else at school. They were so studious that they had never been told off in their lives. So it will come as no surprise to you to learn that whenever they returned a book to the school library, it was absolutely spotless. Needless to say, this turned Spick's incandescent with rage, as it made it impossible for her to find them. Nevertheless, she had amassed a fortune from all the other kids. But what did an elderly school librarian need all the money for? To soup up her mobility scooter, of course. Keep up. The kids gave the beast of a machine a nickname, the Trike of Terror. It was terrifying with all its modifications. To pay for all these modifications, Miss began imposing on-the-spot fines in the library, all for all kinds of spurious reasons. Returning a book 1 second late, 10p. Whispering too loud, 20p. Sneezing on a book, 75p. Looking as if you were about to sneeze on a book, 65p. Dropping a book, £20. Having an untouched shirt, 55p. Leaning on the bookcase, 25p. Yawning, 5p. Pulling a book off the shelves by hooking your finger over the top rather than pinching the spine with 2 fingers, £8.50. Sharpening your pencil and thereby disturbing the piece, 95p. Sucking on a mint, 35p. Bringing a can of fizzy drink into the library, strictly forbidden, £1.25. Having a head shaped like an egg, 15p. Using a too scratchy pen, 30p. Dropping a crumb on the carpet, 1p. Smiling without prior written consent, 40p. Smelling of cheese, 80p. Tapping the desk, 85p. Breathing more than your fair share of air, 90p. Picking your nose, 50p. Picking your nose and eating it, £1. Picking, flicking, rolling and flicking, £2.50. Breaking wind, £100. Soon it was impossible to even set foot in the library without Spick extorting money from you. So the kids simply stopped going, which was a real shame as they loved reading books. After she sat alone in her big empty library for a whole term without one single visitor, Spick thumped the desk in frustration. Of course, she had to fine herself for doing that. She took 85p out of her special fines tin before immediately putting it back in. Then Miss Spick had a thought. If the children would not come to her, she would have to go to them. So she leapt astride her Trike of terror and rode it through the double doors of the library and out into the school. As Miss Spick trundled into the playground, a gust of wind picked up a crisp packet and it flew into her face. "Wonderful," she explained. That was because it had given Miss Spick an idea. On-the-spot fines for littering. "You, child, the chocolate bar wrapper you so carelessly tossed over your shoulder will cost you dearly," she hissed moments later. "But Miss Spick, that isn't my chocolate wrapper," the girl protested. "Oh, yes, it is." "No, it isn't, I promise. I'm allergic to chocolate and I have never, ever eaten it." "In the time you have been talking, the fine has gone up 60p to 70p. The kids had no choice but to cough up the cash. If they didn't, Spick would pursue them around the playground, sitting astride the Trike of terror. The souped-up mobility scooter had just been fitted with stereo speakers. Now Miss Spick could listen to Beethoven's bombastic Fifth Symphony, her favourite piece of music, on loop as she terrorised them. All the children at Spottington School were running out of pocket money, and fast. Every last penny was going straight to Miss Spick, and they had nothing left to spend on things that truly mattered to them, like football cards, hair scrunchies, ice cream, bubblegum, rude comics, whoopee cushions, stickers, smelly rubbers, and gonks. Someone at the school had to do something to stop Miss Spick. The only kids at Spottington School who were not terrified of her were the Tang twins. It was time for the revenge of the nerds. One break time, the pair were sitting together on the bench in the playground, getting on with some quiet reading. It was a weighty book they'd chosen themselves to read for fun. It was entitled An Expert's Guide to Rocket Science. Their 4 eyes scanned the pages, digesting every last indigestible fact. All was good in the world until they heard the distinctive chords of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. It could mean only one thing. "Oh no," remarked Tim Tang. "Oh yes," replied Tom Tang. They looked up from their book. The music was heralding the arrival of Spick astride the Trike of Terror. "Rocket science will have to wait," said Tim. "It certainly looks like it," agreed Tom. The librarian came to a halt right next to them, the bull bar at the front crushing their knees. "Ouch," said Tim. "Ditto," said Tom. "I do hope you haven't dented my scooter," hissed Miss Spick. "Us too? How can we help you, Miss Spick?" inquired Tom politely. "Well, well, well," began the librarian. "What have we here?" The lady had a long metal spike in one hand. At the other end of it was a burger wrapper. Tom peered closely. It looked very much like a burger wrapper, Miss Spick. "I know that," she snapped. "Then we are agreed. We are glad to be of service, Miss Spick," added Tom, and the pair returned to their book. "Good day." Miss Spick's face soured. "The questions what's it doing right next to your footies?" The Tang twins shared a puzzled look. "I imagine it blew over," guessed Tim. Tom nodded. "The wind, which is coming from the northwesterly direction, is unusually strong today, miss. It is certainly nothing to do with us. We have never eaten a burger. We only eat food that is good for our brains." "Would you care for a blueberry, miss?" asked Tim, offering her one from a clearly labelled Tupperware container. "Or a pumpkin seed?" asked Tom, reaching in his briefcase for his Tupperware container. "No," thundered Spick. For once things weren't going to plan. "This burger wrapper sitting right next to you, there is a fine to pay, £5. The twins looked at each other and gulped. £5, they said in unison. "Each? £10? Heart the geniuses," she scoffed. "Now pay up or else." "But Miss Speck," protested Tom, "we've been saving up all our pocket money since Christmas for a book that looks really fun called Advanced Quantum Mechanics," added Tim. "Hand the money over now," snarled Spick. The twins looked close to tears as they pulled their matching wallets out of their smart black briefcases and began counting all the coins they had saved up. Spick snatched their wallets out of their hands. "I shall take those." Then the librarian spread off on her mobility scooter, cackling to herself and waving her spike in the air in triumph. "Success!" Poor Tim's eyes glowed with tears. Without a word, Tom offered his brother his handkerchief. When he had dabbed his face dry, Tim studied the back of Miss Speck's scooter as it trundled off across the playground. "What's that?" he asked. "What's what?" replied his twin. "That black box she has fitted on the back." Tom's eyes honed in on the box. There was an opening at the base of it, like a little cat flap. Every few meters or so it flipped open, dropping a piece of litter as it went. A sweet wrapper here, a fizzy drink can, a lolly stick, a plastic bottle, a crisp tube. It was a litter flap. "I don't believe my eyes, Tom." "You should believe them, Tim, because my eyes are seeing it too. Spick is spreading the rubbish herself. What a rotten rotter." We must inform the authorities," Spick is the authorities. Oh, yes. We can't inform the authorities about the authorities. No. If you will forgive me, Tom, I think I have a better idea, said Tim, his eyes lighting up with his own undeniable genius. And an expert guide to the rocket science has unwittingly provided the inspiration. All of a sudden it dawned on Tom what Tim was on about. They were identical twins after all. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? He asked. Great minds think alike. They most certainly do, agreed Tom. The twins smiled and continued scanning the page of their books. The pair were in no hurry to wreak revenge. The Tangs were methodical and wanted their plan to be perfect, or, more accurately, perfectly dastardly. These boys didn't get 100% in every exam for nothing. They read every book they could about rocket science, watched every documentary about space travel, and even visited the Space Museum at weekends. Until the day they were finally ready. That morning, the Tang twins spotted the Trike of Terror, parked outside the ladies' toilets block in the playground. The lady was famous for spending for her long morning poos that would often go on until way into the afternoon. They knew they would have time to add the latest modifications to her mobility scooter. The Tangs had meticulously constructed 2 booster rockets. These they smuggled into school in their cello case. Speedily they attached the rockets to Miss Spick's mobility scooter. The twins had just finished tightening the last bolt when Spick staggered out of the toilet. They hid behind the bicycle shed. Not being in lessons was sure to arouse Miss Spick's suspicion. The scooter had so many bizarre modifications over the years that the librarian didn't notice the new cylinders on each side. She swung her legs over the scooter and sat on the controls. Just then the bell rang for the beginning of break time. In anticipation, she span the speed dial on the Trike of Terror. Meanwhile, the Tang twins stepped out of their hiding place and tried to act naturally. Good morning, Miss Spick, they said in unison. Oh, it is, you idiots, scoffed Spick. You owe me money. We gave you everything we had, replied Tom. Actually, she snatched it off us, said Tim. I stand corrected. Miss Spick's black eyes narrowed. The fine for littering was £10, and your wallets, you only had £9 and 99 pence. As soon as we receive our pocket money, we will be sure to give you that penny, reasoned Tom. We can always deposit the coin through the little flap there, said Tim, pointing to the back of the scooter. I don't know what you mean, protested the librarian. Oh, I think you do, replied Tom. Drive safely now. Or should we say, fly safely. What are you two ridiculous nerds on about? She demanded. All in good time, Miss Spick, said Tom. All in good time, echoed Tim. By this time, all the kids were pouring out of their classrooms into the playground. Lots and lots of horrible children to run over. This is going to be fun. It most certainly is, replied the twins with a smile. Spick flicked a switch. Beethoven's Fifths boomed out of the speakers. The librarian let go of the brake, and to her surprise, the 2 booster rockets fired up. What the... But before she could say whatever rude words she was going to say next, fire and smoke shot out of the rocket. The Trike of Terror was blasted into the sky. No, she cried. Yes, cheered the entire school as their dreaded librarian zoomed over their heads. Spick rocketed up and up and up through the clouds, lighting the sky with red and gold. In seconds she was passing through the Earth's atmosphere. The rockets detached and parachuted back to the ground. This left Miss Spick holding on to her mobility scooter for dear life, floating through space. "Help!" she screamed, though she was so far nobody could hear her. Now, you will be pleased to learn that space is absolutely full of debris. Not just meteors, but scraps of old spaceships, satellites and space stations circling the Earth. "Ow! Ouch! Ah!" Spick cried, as all those bits and bobs bashed into her. As for our heroes, the Tang twins, they were still safely on Earth, staring up at the sky. "Excellent work, Tim and Tang." "I was about to say the same thing, Tom Tang. I believe she called us nerds. There is no higher compliment." They shook hands at a job well done. "Pumpkin seed?" offered Tom. "Don't mind if I do," replied Tim. They walked off together, munching on their brain food for chess club.